Hey YouTube, I don't know if this is actually a tool review, but I just want to tell you a little bit about this Porter cable planer that I have here. It's a 12.5-inch 15 amp and it has been working fine. I noticed the other day I shut it off at lunchtime, I believe it was, and then when I went to come back I had to flip the switch a couple times before it would come back on. So this morning then I came out, it was working fine yesterday, and just so you know, up until right now I have planed 750 board feet of this in less than a week. So what happened was, on the side of the motor, the first thing I did was I took the switch off, checked the wires in there and stuff. The switch is good, the wires were, I don't know, the one wire seemed a little flaky to me, so I put a new wire nut on it, but that wasn't the problem. What it is on the side of the motor here you have these little plugs, and there's brushes inside here. And if you pull the brush out, this is what runs on the commutator to make the brush, or to make the motor spin. So on the sides of this brass doesn't make really great contact on the side of the housing that it has there. So all you do is just take it apart, clean it off a little bit, and what I did was I spread these tabs just ever so lightly so that I would get good contact, and then I put it back in there, okay, and then put the nut back on. There's a spring on there, so you got to watch it a little bit. But if you have a problem with yours not wanting to run after you've been running it a while, there's so much dust and dirt created with this thing that the sawdust actually collects inside, even though the brushes have a sealed motor, it collected inside there. There's also, just so you know, there's another one on this side. It's right here. All you got to do is take these screws out and the cover comes off. There are two little nuts here, or bolts. Take the cover off and you can get at that one as well. I just did the one this morning, and started up easy. So just a heads up for you guys. I don't know why the dust gets in there, but anyway it does, and that's how you can fix it. Okay? Have a good one. Oh, before I forget, make sure you unplug the thing when you go to put it together, take it apart and put it together, because if you don't unplug it and it's on, you'll get a shock from that when you go to fool with it. Alright, thanks. Bye. Hey YouTube, I'm going to be changing the blades around on this Porter cable planer, so I figured you'd want to see it. This nut or bolt here and this one over here on this side is what holds this cover down. So you just take the bolts up or out. You can pull the cover off and you can see that you're down to the blade there. Okay, this is the blade right here. Now those blades are feeling pretty dull to me because when they're normally like a razor. So it's taken a while to cut through. Now here's the thing. I put the new set of blades on yesterday, but I've also cut, let me just check this out here. I cut around 25 or 28 1x10 and 1x12 combination of them, and like I say, it's starting to not want to cut too good. Now these blades have no nicks in them or anything, and it's possible that I can resharpen these. I'm not sure yet. They're about 29 bucks a pair, and the good thing about them is they're reversible. So inside here, I don't know, the wrench comes with the tool, and these bolts that are here have the star bit on them, star cut, or whatever you call that thing, Torx, and all you do is loosen them up. You got to watch the two end ones have a spring in them. The two end bolts, this bolt and this bolt, have a spring down inside. So you want to watch when you do take that apart that that you catch those springs. They're not really a pain that badly. I mean, you don't really jump out too much, a little bit, but anything that falls down doesn't fall inside the machine. It falls on a stainless steel tray that's below the cutter. So I'm going to take these and turn them around end for end so that I can get some better cutting here, because it's slowing me down pretty much. The spring just fell down here. Gotta be careful, they're not very big, so you want to hang on to them. Like I say, they're at the end of the rod. See it there? It's right here. They go at each end. It's machined for it. So what you want to do then is wipe this keeper off. This holds the blade in place, and the blade itself has two spots in it, or a couple spots actually, to set it with these holes onto the bar here, this revolving bar. And there's two pins sticking up, two dowel pins sticking up there. I don't know if you can see that right here. Two dowel pins that stick up to hold the bar in place. So I'm putting the new cutter down. I'm just turning it over. Maybe I should see if I can't show you that a little bit better. Got to be careful. These things are like handling the edges of a razor blade. They are very sharp, especially the new ones. And they're fairly flat, so once they go down in there, it's hard to get a hold of them. And like I say, if they do fall down, like that one just did, it's only on the stainless steel tray, so you can get at it again easy. Yeah, what I wanted to show you was the blade has a cutter on each side. So this is the side that was cutting this morning, so I'm just turning it end for end and putting it back down. But the taper of the blade is facing down, or facing up as you look down at it. So you want to put that thing where it belongs. And then we put the springs in each end. And then you just take this bar and sort of hold down on it a little bit on the springs until you get a bolt started. The bar also has some little holes in it here to set itself where it belongs. Got to keep pressure on it so that the springs go down, or else it pushes the bar and stuff back out of the dowel pins. It's not a really big job to change these blades. They're actually fairly easy as far as I'm concerned. I don't know how other ones are. Like I say, you want to make sure that the pins are located in the holes that are on the keeper on the bar that keeps the blade intact. Now I'm loosening these up because it looks like the blade came out of its spot that it needs to stay in. There it is. You can tell when you look at the blade if it's not in right as you start to snug it down, if the blade's not even across where this holding bar is. So the pin right there, you need to see the pin coming through the blade and the keeper bar on both sides. So once you get them, all I'm doing is seating the bolts and a little bit of a snug twist on it, and then I'll start from the beginning. If you angle it a little bit, the head of this tool doesn't hit anything. So once I get it on there, it's probably like 1/8 of a turn to make them tight. And just go over them a second time. There's 2 blades in this machine. Alright, so that blade's been sharpened. You want to be very careful with this thing because it's, like I say, it's like a razor. So now I'm going to take this bar off or this blade off and turn this one around. One of the other things I noticed when you're planing, and you keep in mind that this is a homeowner's planer. In other words, if I was going to use this planer the right way, I would probably be planing a couple boards a week rather than what I'm doing. I mean, altogether I've planed almost 1,000 board feet here. I planed 700 yesterday and the day before together, and I planed, let's see, there's 30 boards there. 30 times 8 is 380, or no, 30 times 8 is 240, and then that's 240 board feet, which is a lot of board feet to cover with one of these little planers. But I think that the planer's made very well for how well it's been cutting when you think about it. I mean, a homeowner's planer, if you buy a homeowner's drill or a homeowner's grinder, I'd already have that thing burned out after what this has done. So if this lasts to get through the red oak that's over there yet, the 12-inch boards, that means that this will have cut 1,000 board feet in less than 4 days, or at least 4 days of cutting. So technically you can't really beat that. You got to be really careful with these blades. I'm just wiping it off here and turning it over. I think that with a stone, and you set this thing at the right angle, I believe that a man can sharpen these things as long as there's no nicks in them. If you get nicks in them, you may as well forget it. That makes it hard to work with. Drop the spring over there. So we put the spring in each end. Wipe the keeper bar off. And then set that on top of the springs, basically. You want to make sure that the blade stays in those dowel pins. It doesn't take much to knock them out. And like I say, when you put pressure down there on the bar, you want to see the dowel pin sticking into the bar, because then you know it's through the blade as well as the bar. And just put a little, enough tension on there just to hold the blade down. So I'm pushing on it with my fingers as well as tightening up the screws. Once you get a couple in, it's going to stay in place. It's a little quicker here. Okay, so the blades have been turned around on both of them. I'm going to wipe the cover down a little bit and then put the cover back on there. There's really nothing to it, like I say. And put these bolts down that hold the cover in place. I'm going to put pressure that way. There's like a sponge there that keeps the sawdust within this area. I mean, you do get a mess here and there's no way to really grab the sawdust unless you had a different type of a cover. I could probably make a cover for it, but I'm not interested in that. My whole theory here, guys, is I want to know a good planer that I can put in my workshop that doesn't have to be $5,000. This thing was, I think this thing was 300 bucks or so, 350. You can look on Lowe's website, somewhere in that neighborhood. And I bought the 3-year warranty for it because I knew I was going to be planing about 5,000 board feet of wood on this thing. And if it goes, I'm just going to go get another one. It's that simple. But I'll tell you, right now it has cut about 900 or maybe 850 board feet. Now I've wasted one set of blades because I had a nail in a board, so that sort of ruined one side. I flipped them over, and now I just flipped these. I put a new set on yesterday, and now I flipped that over. So you're looking at a set of 1, 2, 3 cutting edges, 3 new cutting edges, actually 4 new cutting edges altogether at this point. And I did all that oak that's over there except for the finishing up the 1x12. Guys, let me give you an idea of the drawbacks here of certain things that you take for granted and then you suffer later. If you look at this, I'm not really sure if you can see it very well. You'll see there's lines in these boards. Those lines came from sharpening a blade that had a couple of teeth that were not set within the tolerance. So when you hit a nail with a tooth, you change the set of it a lot of times. And when you change that set, if you don't pick it up and notice which one it is, you get these lines through here. They're not very deep. They're like about maybe a 1/16 of an inch deep. But what happens is when you go to plane, you can see like this area's been planed, this has not. This area's been planed. Okay, this has not. So when you're cutting with the Wood Mizer, it pays you to use good sharp blades all of the time in cutting wood. So like what I'm finding out with it is, if in doubt, change the blade. Because if you can get a smooth cut rather than this ripply cut here, you'll find it a lot easier to plane the boards later. Because some of these are forcing me to go through more than one time to get the to get the boards the way it ought to be. Now, like this board here doesn't have as bad a ripple, so I'm expecting that one to go through a little bit nicer. But this all came about when I hit nails with the wood miser that I did not know I hit. I'm a little bit confused by it because I thought that I would hear the nail, but I don't hear it. Although some people can hear it, but I don't hear it. I guess, you know, years of working and jackhammering and what kind of crap has changed my hearing. But anyway, you can see how this is. So when you go to enter this into the planer, if you look over here, there's a gauge. Right now the gauge is set at about 1 3/16. Yeah, about 1 3/16. And you can see there's a gap here, along here. So this means that the head has to go down. So you crank the head down a little bit until the part of the machine that wants to pull the blade through by itself does it. Okay? So what I'll show you here now is I've pulled the planer down to where it roughly should be. This board has a little bit of a cup to it. In other words, the cup is up. So the board is shaped like this. Okay, just slightly. Now I'm finding out that 1x12s, the 1x12s are the worst ones for that. The smaller 1x6s and all, you can get away with. They don't seem to cup as much. These here, especially if the 1x12's cut in the center of the tree. Now these are not, so they're not that badly cupped. But I've had 1 or 2 of these that were cut pretty bad that I put through about 8 times. Ended up with a 5/8 inch board, but that's okay because really 1/2 inch oak boards I can use for drawers, you know, to build drawer sides. But I'm going to show you now. So we got a board here that had a saw blade on it that was not set correctly, and now it's coming time to plane it. So just hold your eardrums while I show you what the planing is like here. Now I did put a new blade in, so the planer should be able to pull that through a lot easier. Okay, I ran this board through and the opposite side is totally smooth. Now you can see there's a little bit right here that's rough. It's all smooth down through here, the planer here. Right here's a spot, little spot, and right here. So I'm going to run it through one more time on this side because it's still bigger than 3/4. And technically I want the board slightly bigger than 3/4 if I can help it, so that I can plane it down once I go to use it for something. So I'm going to run this through one more time here on this face that's up facing up, just to get it smooth. But my whole point here with this conversation is that when you're cutting the boards, if you're starting to get those marks in the board and stuff, it's not the end of the world depending upon what you're going to do with the wood. But keep in mind, if you're going to plane it, it's going to take a little bit of extra work to get that planed. Alright, so what I do then, after I cut the board, I put tape on there, and I try to cut the boards so that I'm keeping the best wood on here. Now, the way this is if I cut this at 8'4", I can cut a little off the other end and eliminate some of that crack that's in there. So this will take, that crack out, and all I got to do now is turn this board around. I won't get the crack totally out of it, but I'll get it mainly out of it. You can see there's a longer crack there, but it doesn't matter because the oak is still worth the money. I mean, all you got to do is go down to Lowe's, they don't even have this much red oak that I have here in stock. But you'll see that boards do this. This is the nature of wood. And naturally, everybody's after the perfect piece, which is fine with me. I am as well. And then I take this, put it on the pile, and then I'll grab another piece over there. Like I say, these next two pieces are the ones that have, you can see that other piece. I don't know if you can see that cut in that one. That one was really a bad. This one here really took a nosedive. You can see where the side of the blade is, went in there. So I don't even know if I'm going to keep that, because actually the cut that's in there is down to down to a quarter of an inch out on this side in here. So I think I'm going to skip that board. But this one here only has a little mark in the one side there. And like I say, this all occurred when I was having that problem trying to figure out why these blades weren't cutting. And all it was a matter of they were hitting nails and I never knew it. So I'm going to put that blade through next. Now also, the other thing I learned here is that the lower on the pile you go, the flatter the boards are. So if you can put weight on the top to keep the board down, all of the boards under pressure, you'll have a flatter board than if you stack them up and don't put anything on the top to hold them. It's hard to come up with stuff to put on top of a lot of this lumber because there's a whole lot of it here. Like I said the other day, I have 5,500 board feet on the ground, so it takes a lot of different things to hold that down. Hey YouTube, so all together with all the red oak that's stacked here, you're looking at $7,000 worth of oak. This oak that's in here alone pays for the sawmill. And there's a whole lot more in the kiln. Well YouTube, I managed to get that cleaned up. Got a lot of wood stacked there. It doesn't look like much, but from the photograph, but let me tell you, there's 1,000 board feet all together there. Now the stuff that's in the back here is 13 inches wide, so that doesn't fit in my planer. So I'm going to put that in the kiln to dry better once I get it out of there. Otherwise, there's maple, hickory over here. There's just one piece of hickory there right now. I have to cut more. It's in the kiln. Maple. The rest of it's all red oak. And on this side over here, right there, is all red oak. So, almost got the greenhouse to the point where she can use it. A little bit more work yet, and then I'll be done with that. Boy, this cleanup is murder. Have a good one, guys. It's way past quitting time for this old man.